Good morning, Canyon View. I'm Chad Gustafson, and I'm an elder here at this church. And wasn't that video amazing? Just getting to see those stories. I know some of those stories went by a little fast, and so just so you know, later on this week you can go out to Facebook and you can actually pause it and you can kind of read some of those stories. But they're just amazing stories, and that's really our church. Those people are from our church. They're us. We're all family here, and we all get to experience this and experience what God has done through adoption and through foster care. And God is just continuing to do amazing things in this church. Now, to give you a little bit of background of my story, my wife and I, we were married 15 years ago. And then 5 years after we were married, we had our biological daughter, Adelaide. There's my lovely family up there. And then right after that, a couple years, we actually adopted our son, Sam, from Ethiopia. He was just a baby at the time, 5 months old. And we actually had been waiting for a while, and we were like, well, why is this taking so long? So we called them up, the agency that we were working with, and we said, why is this taking so long? Is there some delays? And they said, well, for people who want girls, it's taking a while. And we said, well, we signed up for either, like boy or girl. And they said, oh, well, we've got a referral for you then right here. And so they got us Sam right away, and he came home at 5 months old, and life's never been the same since. And then a couple years after that, we decided, we kind of took the Kirk and Jane approach of adopting a baby, and then, we'll adopt an older child. This is before we knew Kirk and Jane, mind you. So we adopted Bemnet when she was 9 years old. Bemnet means by faith in the Ethiopian language. So she joined our family. And so now we are a lovely family of 5, and we've really been just blessed through adoption. And it was about 5 years ago, we were thinking, we would love to be we were in a vineyard church in Wisconsin, and it was the middle of the winter, mind you, and just so you know, winter there, like your inversions here, they last from September, Labor Day, until about Memorial Day in northern Wisconsin. So that was like our winter. And so in the middle of it, and right in January, my wife, she basically said, Chad, I found this amazing vineyard church that's out here in Grand Junction, and take a look at this. Take a look at this Woven Families ministry. And I looked at it and I said, wow, that's really cool. So we decided to come out here and visit, and so we visited 2 months later, and then we said, that's it. I think God is calling us to move and to bring our family here, and we were just struck by this church and struck by all that God is doing in this church through adoption, through South Sudan, through every sort of thing that happens. That's what I love about this church is we all do things big here. We don't just, hand out 2 meals at Thanksgiving. We hand out thousands, and we have, just hundreds of people that are coming to help serve with that. We do Operation Christmas Child, huge. We have a wall of all these South Sudanese pastors that we're supporting. And the same thing happens with the adoption ministry that's here. And so we decided to move here. I got permission to work from home from my boss, and we sold our house in 3 days. Nobody ever moves to northern Wisconsin. Someone moved from Texas, really weird, and bought our house 3 days after we put it on the market. I mean, God just was moving. And the cool thing is we haven't really had a chance to look back. It's like, no, God is still moving forward. And God's moving forward here is the cool thing. And I want to invite up 4 people who are going to be part of a panel up here as we kind of do things a little different for this Orphan Sunday. And we're going to get some different perspectives they each have a very unique story and a very lovely story that I can't wait for all of you to be able to join in and to be able to experience. And it's just great to see kind of these are the people who are sitting right next to you at church. And the cool thing is this is just a sample of a lot of the stories that are out there. But the cool thing is God has done amazing things, and people that you may not even know there's been these amazing things that are happening. And God is moving in and through this church and through all of you. And so, without further ado, I'll introduce Tad Saunders.
Hello. Hey, we're on. Hi, my name's Tad. I'm married to a dear lady named Sylvia. She can't be here right now, but my story is I was an adopted kid from birth, but my story really is just about family. I was born into a family, and maybe a little differently than some, but it was never stated that I was in an adoptive family. I just considered it a family with all of its ups, downs, dramas, and joys, and all that kind of stuff. And it truly is, for me, it's a story of redemption. I became a believer later in life, and that word just took on even greater meaning, not only what Jesus did for me, but what he did even before I knew him, that he loved me so much that he placed me in a family that was just amazing. And not only was it a redemption story for me, but also for my mom and dad, as my mom, the previous December, had a miscarriage, and in those days, that really makes me sound old. In those
You're
days,
not, Ted. You're
okay,
not.
Thanks, Forrest. Doesn't he look like Forrest Gump? I mean, isn't this great?
Thank you.
And he even ran to get in here today. Anyway, mom had to carry the stillborn with her for, it was a month or so, and then she had to have a hysterectomy. So her childbearing days were over, and all of the sadness and trauma that went with that. And then the following July, they had applied earlier, and they realized that they were going to get a little kid who was going to cause them all sorts of grief. But it was just a real joyous time. And I really got to shout out to the birth moms and certainly the fathers. I just think that they are some of the unsung heroes, the courage and grace and strength that goes with carrying a child and all the things that go with that. And then having to or desiring to give that up because of a variety of reasons, but just the betterment and thinking of the joy and the benefit and love for that kid is just awesome. That's a story of courage for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Tad. That's a great story. And Grace, you are a high schooler, a senior right now, and I think everyone here would love to hear your story of adoption and kind of your journey through that.
Yeah, of course. So I came to live with my current family when I was about 8. Now, they had just adopted 2 boys and given birth to my little sister a couple months before. And so originally it wasn't supposed to be an adoption story. It was supposed to be a let my bio mom, get her head straight kind of thing. She was all sorts of in and out, couldn't provide what I needed from her. And so it was just supposed to be a time for her to get right. But about a year and a half went by, and she still was having problems. And so my bio mom and my current mom kind of took me to the side and asked me if I would like to be part of my family, like if I would like to be adopted. And of course I was like, heck yeah, I would. Like, I was so excited. I was only a child, and now I was the leader of 4. I had minions to do my work. I had people to boss around. It was pretty great. I had all of this. So on November 19th of 2010, I was adopted by the Pecks, and it was probably one of the greatest days of my life. It was pretty cool, actually. My entire family is a big adoption family. My cousins were adopted the same day I was, same year. So afterwards, we went and had a big old breakfast, and later that night, we had a party.
That's great. That's great. Rod, you have a little bit different perspective. You've adopted some children, and you've also done a lot of foster care as well. And I mean, I know you're also a social worker, and you stay really busy. And so I'm just curious. First of all, tell us a little bit about your story, but also how do you make it day by day? No.
Thank you. Well, first I have to give credit to my wife, Nancy, right here, and our adopted son, Delson, right there. We adopted Delson from Haiti when he was 2.5, so he's been with us most of his life. And Nancy and I, when we got married, actually she had adopted her oldest son in her first marriage, so she was no stranger to adoption even before we got married. And then shortly after we married, God just laid on our hearts to continue with foster care. And there are homes that are called concurrent homes where you foster for a while, but your intention is to adopt, and so that is one option. But we've had several kids in our home of various ages over the last 4 years. And one sibling group that we had, four brothers, ranging from age 5 through 11, or 3 brothers, and then we added the fourth, came to us the last year. And so after they'd been with us for about 3.5 years, they actually got adopted by a family over in Longmont, a man and wife that were unable to have children. And so for the last 2 years that it's been since they got adopted, of course, you try to keep sibling groups together, and it was just a real God thing that they were all 4 able to be adopted by the same family. And they're just happy as larks, and they keep in touch with us, and they're just doing boy things out on the ranch, and so they're having a great time. But really, Nancy carries the majority of the weight. I go to work in the morning, and she takes kids around to therapy appointments and family visits and you name it, schools all over the valley. And so I can't give enough credit to Nancy for watching the kids. We have 5 foster kids right now, plus Delson's our son.
That's amazing. I mean, and last night I called him, and he was actually at the Avalon with all of them, and I was like, I would be at home just resting and just sleeping and watching football. In fact, I kind of did do some of that last night. But, I mean, it's just amazing all the things that you do with those kids. It's just a great story.
We love to take them fishing and to community activities and the woven family stuff. They were just a lot of enrichment stuff they didn't have before.
That's great. Thanks, Rod. Yeah. Sandy, you have also a great story that again we all would love to hear about maybe how God called you into adopting, and you can kind of share your family a little bit as well.
All right. So I did some date changes because my husband informed me that I had some dates wrong. So he's the math guy. So as you can see up there, we have 2 beautiful older biological boys. They're 13.5 months apart, so that was not planned. The second one was an oops, which the older one likes to inform him a lot of. So we took a break and it was about the summer of, it was 2006, and Dan Cox also did adoption, and there's agencies out there that you could go and see about after church. And my husband and I would just say, kind of, you go get the packet. No, you go get the packet. You go get the packet. And we're like, okay, maybe it's not yet. So in the summer of 2007, the boys were 7 and 6. If I'm wrong, that's okay. But my husband and I are very energetic, and we kind of noticed they didn't need us as much. And we're like, what are we supposed to do? And they were like, adoption, that's it. So we went to Bethany, which is an agency we ended up going through in 2007. And we listened, and we kind of prayed about it. And the next day, I kind of looked at my husband, I still remember this, and said, so what do you think? And he said, well, if they just plop a baby on our doorstep, I will take her. And I said, honey, you're still going to have to do the paperwork. And he's like, oh. So at that point, we're teachers, so are we bored? What's going on? So then the next year happened in 2008. And definitely when I think about the time that we were really sparked, that this was when we were adopted, when we found out later, that is when Jax and Maddie were conceived. They were meant to be our children. So, and we were really busy, so we knew that it was God because it was fall and he coaches. So we're like, okay, this is God. So in 2008, we began, and also Kirk and Jane had come in. There is something to see people go before you and do it. So it was cool that, man, we can do this. Look, they're all right. It's okay. So someone going before you is pretty cool too. So in 2008, we started to to look into adopting, and we were interested in a little girl because we had 2 boys. My husband wanted a little girl. So in 2009, our dossier was into Haiti, and we found out in October that there were twins, and there was a boy, and Mama loves her boy, so she's like, yes, I get my boy. And with who we went through, you didn't know really ages. We knew they were babies, but we didn't know anything else about them. And we knew that there were 3 other couples that would be willing to accept the referral. So we went from October, November, December, calling Bethany saying, okay, have they made the referral? Have they made the referral? And nope, they haven't. And then January 12th came, and that was the day of the earthquake in 2010, and we still hadn't had the referral. So at that point, I spent most of my time looking at a computer trying to figure out what we could do to get some child on humanitarian parole that had already been an orphan. And we found out from Bethany that was the week that we were going to get the referral for the twins. What was really cool is later on when my son was 14, my oldest was 14, he wanted to go on a mission trip. So we ended up going to the orphanage that we'd never gone to. And we were there, and I got to talk to the director, and she said, the day of the earthquake, before it happened, Maddie and Jax were referred to us. So we found out, we got the referral on a Tuesday, and then we were on a plane on Thursday to go pick them up in Miami. And my husband and I was thinking about what we were doing, and in the airplane, we were just like, are they gonna be this big? Are they gonna be that big? You know, it was really cool, and they were 10 months old, and it was an amazing thing. And when we came home, I had nothing, because you gotta know when you're doing this adoption process, it can take years. So right. I just had a beautiful baby doll that I would hold, ready to give it to my little girl, but nothing else. And when we were gone, our hockey family, our school family, our church family turned our world upside down and made it okay for 2 little 10-month-old twins to come into our life.
That's awesome. And Sandy, to add to that, didn't your husband need a sign? Oh,
okay. So there was. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was an amazing sign that I actually didn't know about until they asked for our story in January. After Gertie came and everyone came from Haiti, they'd asked for our story. And my husband said, we were kind of waiting. Is this from God? Or are we just bored? What's going on? And so my husband said, God, I just need a sign. And so it was cool. He walked out of church, and a little girl who was Asian that was obviously adopted with the family that she was with blew him a kiss. And he's like, all right, God, here we come. So, yes.
Nothing like tugging on a daddy's heartstrings right there. That's so awesome.
Yes.
Now, Grace, I know you've shared that there's been some ups and downs, and I think everyone would love to hear a little bit more in your journey.
Yeah, of course. Adoption is so beautiful and everything that it is, but it's actually pretty messy at times. Like, it's amazing. My family, the way and how close we are, it's pretty great. We just love spending time with each other. Like, we make nights where we're like, okay, we're just gonna chill, we're gonna sit down and watch a movie as a family. Even on like regular nights, we're gonna eat dinner together as a family and watch a show and just kind of chill together. So that's an amazing part about adoption. But it definitely comes with struggles. And a lot of the struggles that happened for me was in my earlier years of adoption. So as I mentioned before, my biological mom was the one that needed to get her head straight. But a lot of it happened because she had been going through a rough time. She was in the middle of a divorce of my stepdad, and while I was still living with them while they were together, my mom would frequently work. She worked in the ER as a phlebotomist, and so she was constantly working nights, and she was busy, and my stepdad would be doing whatever he does. I don't know. But, he had some issues that caused us to move around a lot, and so I never really got close with him. But my mom and I were always so close. Like, we did everything together. I would skip school just to make sure I could hang out with her. She was my best friend. And so when I came to live with the family that I'm with now, I immediately clicked with my dad. My dad and I became like best friends. I loved him. I wanted him to be in my life forever. But then there was my mom. And I, in my mind, had already had a mom, and so I was like, you can do you, but I'm gonna do me over here, and I'm not part of this. So we definitely had like a struggle over like power rule. Like, I had been an adult in my life at the age of 8. Like, I was my own parent, and not only that, but I was also my mom's parent. And so coming into a life where they were already well established in like their parenthood and having kids and, you know, being an adult, I had a hard time accepting the fact that I am not a co-parent between them. So not only did I try to parent my siblings and tell them what to do, but I also tried to parent my parents on how to parent us. So my mom and I definitely have come such a long way in our relationship. We have gone through some struggles of how we both feel about each other and how I feel about her being my mom, but honestly, there has never been a day where I don't doubt that she loves me and cares for me and only just wants the best for me. And sometimes I think it might be my fault that we struggle sometimes. I mean, it could just be the teenager part of me. Who knows?
Never. Oh, well, thanks for sharing, Grace. And Rod, I know you're in foster while you're fostering these children. You're not adopting them, but I'm just curious, how do you also kind of tell them about adoption?
Well, it's kind of like you were saying, that spirit of adoption is something that really is infused throughout this church, and that's one reason this church has been so appealing to us. The woven families, all of the different ways, the cell groups, the children's ministry. Once the kids get involved in any of the activities here, they're just immersed with the Lord Jesus, and we try to do our part by playing Christian music in the car and sing along stuff and just make it fun. So it's just it's a wonderful atmosphere to raise children in, and it's so gratifying to see kids that maybe never went to church or really didn't have any kind of a spiritual background, and they just over just a few months they just grow so much and get really excited about Jesus, and that's just wonderful to see.
And I also heard stories about that they would go up to different people around town and be able to share, I'm getting adopted just like God adopted me. And that's the cool thing, is you get to leave that legacy with those children that are in your home for just a short period of time. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're just glad that we can kind of get them off on the right foot and know that they'll continue to grow in the Lord. In fact, our youngest one, the little 5-year-old, today, right after the first service, and he went to the Sunday school, and he came out and he had his little paper, and he says, I got to tell you. He says, Jesus is God. And so, it's like it's so great when things dawn on him.
Right.
So at 5 years old, he's got it now.
That's awesome. He's got it. That's great. That's cool. Tad, I want people to hear kind of a discovery that you made like 7 years ago.
Very good. Thank you. The last 7 years of my mom's life, she came out to live with Sylvie and I. And I grew up in Illinois, and so Mom, sold her house, all the goods, and then brought a few things out, which, by the way, from an inheritance standpoint, parents always think that their kids are going to want all of their, stuff. And Mom was really into Hummels and blue plates. And so I said, Mom, let's just have an auction. And I said, we'll take a few that, are memorable to you. But anyway, we've gone through that with our kids, and we said, you're certainly going to want all this cool stuff that we have. And they say, not so much. But so Mom came out to live with us, and she passed away in 2012. And so when I was preparing her service, looking through just historic stuff about her that I really didn't know, I stumbled across my adoption papers. And that was kind of weird because that was the very first time I heard the name or saw the name of my birth parents. And, it was just kind of a fleeting thought. Since then, even before and after, I really have no interest in identifying or trying to seek out my birth parents. I mean, I was born into a family that was just perfect. And, God first loved me that I could love him back, and the same with my family. It was just idyllic. I say that jokingly. They were idyllic, I wasn't. So, so I looked at the papers, and they paid $25 for me. What a bargain! And so Sylvia and I just kind of, we both have a pretty fun sense of humor, and we're saying, I bet there were a number of nights during high school when mom or dad getting ready to go to sleep, they're in bed just kind of talking to one another and reviewing what crazy things their son had done. And they looked at each other and said, well, do you think we paid too much? And but anyway, so it's a real treat, and and I've never really had an interest. This is just me. It's not every adoptee's story, but I've never had an interest in pursuing who my birth parents are, or siblings, and all that. The older I get, my medical history comes out, and I suppose that might be one value. But for those that I know that have done that. And again, this is just my story. I think a lot of people try to go back, a lot of adoptees go back and look for their birth parents because they want to, there's some missing connection. And for me, God is that connection. And God is the reason and the purpose and the designer of who I am and my reason for existence. And I think sometimes it can get misplaced on if as an adoptee I go and look at my birth parents, those that I've known that have done that, their questions haven't been answered because it can't be answered on the man-to-man level. It has to be answered on the God-to-man level. So, amen.
It's really good. Thanks, Tad. Grace, I think people need to see and hear a little bit about the fact that you're well put together here, but you also are a teenager and probably have some little sibling rivalries and sibling things. So I think they may want to hear maybe a story about something.
I mean, there's so many. But one particular one that I remember, and I love telling people this one. So I have 2 brothers and a sister. My 2 brothers are both adopted. And the older one of my brothers, he is 13 at this point in time. His name is Elijah. And my little sister is Nikayla, and she is my parents' biological child. And so Elijah and I are either best friends or like mortal enemies. There is no in between ever, honestly. And so this was a couple years back. Elijah and I were bickering about something dumb, I'm sure. We are always fighting. And so we were bickering about something along the lines. And it was kind of getting loud and kind of getting rowdy. And here strolls in my sassy little sister. Girls, you're both pretty. Now stop fighting. So both of us turn to her, and immediately we're now mad at her, taking all of our aggression on her. Yep. And, we start yelling back and forth. We're fighting with, like, maybe a 6-year-old. So... And somehow, like, favorites gets brought up. I'm like, well, I'm Dad's favorite. Elijah's like, no, I'm Dad's favorite. And Nikki goes, well, I'm Mom's favorite because she pushed me out of her tummy. So that hits home so hard, I start crying. This little 6-year-old girl has brought me and my brother both to tears. So I go running into my mom's room. Mom, Nikki said that you love her more and that she's your favorite because she pushed you out of your tummy. Nikayla, get in here. Here she comes strolling in. Yeah. I chose them. I'm stuck with you.
That's great. It's so true. Well, thanks for sharing that, Grace. And Rod, I know you've just, sometimes when you go out in the community, people notice that your family probably isn't what some people may think as a traditional family. I know you've had an experience at like a restaurant recently. Everyone would love to hear that story.
Yeah, so a while back, and of course, with having 5 foster kids and Delson, I mean, we're kind of an interesting looking crew when we go into a restaurant or something. And so we were sitting across from a couple of young men at another table, and I think they probably noticed that, we were doing foster care or something similar. And so about halfway through the meal, one of them just came over and plopped some money down on the table in front of me, and didn't really say anything at the time, and I kind of looked at it, and it looked like some bills that were just kind of rolled up. I didn't know how much was there. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth kind of thing. And but he mentioned, and he was kind of talking to Nancy more at that time, just that, obviously he appreciated what we were doing and kind of realized it was foster care and how he would like to get into that himself. And so as the meal went on, I kind of unfolded the bills, and he had given us $300 bills right there, and just kind of blew me away, And of course, he didn't know at that time again, this is a God thing. We had gotten a $300 utility bill just a couple of days before, and it's like, oh, I didn't need that. So, thank you, Jesus. That was great.
No kidding. That's great. Sandy, I know your mom was a big support for you, and I'd love to hear more about just how she was a support.
So my mother was widowed when I was 19 and a half years old, so she was kind of on her own. And so about that time in 2006, 2007, we moved into a house, and we brought my mom to live with us so she could retire and rest. Well, when we started bringing up an adoption, one of the biggest things was hard for me is in order to adopt, I would still have to continue working, and that was really, really hard for me. And so when I would talk about adoption with my mom, she's like, well, I'm going to watch the baby. I'm going to do it. So it just took that weight off my shoulders. And so then when we heard in October about those twins, I was like, so I went to my mother, and she's like, awesome. That is so cool, a girl and a boy. So she was really excited. And a lot of people say that she was just as much a part of their life in that first year of their life with us, and she was just as excited as us about the adoption. And so she did watch them. We did find out, we got the twins, in January of 2010, and she was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis in June of 2010. So she did watch the kids the first part of the year. We kind of giggled and laughed because towards the end she had oxygen. It wasn't supposed to be progressing, but she had oxygen, and so we would joke because Jacoy has always been a wild man that they would accidentally pull out her oxygen, and I would come home to Jack's trying to shove it in. Becky, get it in there. So she did pass away in March of 2011, March 14th. The significance of that date is that is the birth date of my twins. So it was kind of that bittersweet thing that had she not been there to say, oh, yeah, I got you covered. It was in a way God saying, I got you covered, even when I take your mother home.
That's great. That's great. And as a church, I know the great thing that I know about this church is you're great at supporting. You guys are amazing. I know we've personally been supported by all of you. And Rod, I was just curious, especially with you having so many foster children, maybe speaking for other foster families as well. What are ways that the church could come around and support you?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. Of course, foster and adoptive families always need plenty of emotional support and prayer, and sometimes it's helpful just to have someone come over and offer to watch the kids for a couple of hours. You don't have to be certified or anything. Just kind of a trusted friend is fine for doing respite care for a brief time. But it's real nice just to have a few hours maybe to get away with your spouse or just part of the kids. So don't be afraid to volunteer for something like that. The cell groups are wonderful support, prayer partners, and some cell groups are a little more kid-friendly than others as far as if you bring them along. But it's wonderful to have prayer from your cell group partners. And the Woven Families Ministries and all of the wonderful children's programs in this church is magnificent. We really enjoy it.
That's great. That's great. And if any of you want to sign up for respite or doing any support in any way, in the back, in the foyer, as you walk out right near some of the face painting, there's going to be, you can talk to some people there and actually sign some pamphlets on that to give them your information, because there's always support that's needed. And Grace, I also want to hear from you how this church has been really a support to you, especially in the youth, coming from the youth department.
Yeah, this church has been a big part of my life and my family's life forever, honestly. We've been going to this church since 2007, 2008, so we've been here for quite a few years. But one of the biggest supporters is Cecilia and Gabe Quintana. They are not only my mentors, but also my families. They are friends and a guidance to us. Cecilia helps mentor me not only with just family things, but with school and friends and just my journey with Christ as well. And she helps me just keep an overall happiness to what's going on in my life. Also, I think some of the best people and the closest friends I've ever met are here at this church, and I've met through youth group, and they've allowed me to become a better Christian, a better friend. They've helped me on my journey, and in return have helped them as well. And so I just think that having that support, not only from people my age, but from different people, has helped me and my family through a journey.
That's so cool. Thanks, Grace. And I just want to thank all four of you for coming up here and being a part of this. It was awesome to hear your stories. Let's cheer for them one more time. And by the way, this was just the tip of the iceberg. I've been able to talk with all of them, and they've got amazing stories that are buried beneath the water, and we're just seeing the tip. And so I'd recommend you go and talk to them. And also, you're going to probably find more and more people that are sitting around you who maybe even have connections with adoption as well. And so I just want to give you a couple points of what you can do as we go from here, that it's not just hearing this, but things that you can do. Now, I know I shared, first of all, that this church, everyone does things so big. We do things big, and people go all in. They go all in, or they go home. And they go all in this church. And that's what we love about this church. And one thing that every orphan, every adoptive family, anyone who's basically been impacted by adoption would love just prayer. So that's the first place that you can all start. And the greatest thing is I know we have some amazing prayer warriors in this church, and all of you can go and just really pray and take time to just pray for really what God is doing in them. And I also want to share with you the second point, which is a baby bottle. These baby bottles are not meant for you guys just to go and drink, but you can actually open them up, and we'll have baby bottles out there as you go. You can open them up and put in all your spare change. And you're going to see a number coming up here at some point later that's going to actually share exactly how much has been raised for these bottles, which still blows my mind. But grab one of these bottles, fill it up, and then you bring it back and you dump it, and then all this change goes to help orphans, helps adoptive families, really kind of works in the Woven Families ministry as well. So grab one of these bottles on your way out. Another thing you can do is grab a packet for Feed One. It's a Convoy of Hope initiative, and it's $10 a week, or a month, excuse me. And if you, $10 a month will feed one child, and that one child is from a developing country. And so just $10 a month, you can sign up. We're going to have, again, back in the same area, in the information desk out in the foyer, there is going to be these packets. You can sign up and really get on board with that. And then the final item I don't want to forget to mention is, if God is really putting a tug on your heart, if God's really put a tug for foster care or for adopting, then the thing is, I just really want you to pray about what God may want you to do from here and how he may want to take you that next step. And there'll be people also out in back to talk to you about that as well. So with that, I want to let you know that this is the 10th anniversary of the Orphan Sunday. And so we've actually Jared has compiled a video that's a great video. And I want you to just take the time and just turn your eyes to the screen and enjoy.